Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday. It's the last day of the month, so we're gonna see if we can get some unwinding moves into the end of the day today, post FOMC and into NFP tomorrow. I do think the crude oil is in an interesting spot. Now, before we begin, welcome. If you're here for the first time, my name is Market Sokadi. I've been trading for 18 years. 12 years out of that, I've been a professional prop trader working for various prop firms, mainly specializing in things like energies and precious metals. But if we ever get DAX, that's going to become the primary product that we're going to trade for this time of the day. But until that comes, we're going to look at what looks the best. Gold just rolled into December, so they usually skip over a couple of contracts in and around this year. If you want to know why, it's because of the delivery requirements. There's not much requirement for gold in and around this year, so the next deliveries are expected in and around Christmas period, which is why they kind of jump to December, in case you were wondering why gold is not rolling into October. And we also have some housekeeping to do. Yesterday was my Topstep VIP group draft, so if you missed that, here's the lineup. These are Discord names. I know that a few people yesterday, when we did the draft, made themselves known in the chat, but this is all the traders who are in my VIP group. Oops, sorry. Let me move that over so that everybody can see it. There we go. So yeah. If you recognize yourself there, make yourself known in the chat. And looking forward to working with all of you. All of yous. Lazy Eyes says, copper all in, make back everything you lost over the 18 years. Yeah, just be careful of copper. I've been talking about copper, doing this, this monthly chart thing. I've been tracking it. So if we look from 2022, let's make that a bit bigger. From 2022, the thing that it's been doing is that every time it makes a new all-time high, it reverses and then spends a full month going in that same direction, and maybe even sometimes longer than that. So one happened in March 2022, so that was sort of in and around COVID. Then it happened again in May 24, and then yet again March this year, and now we have a potential for the same thing happening. Is there some scope for a bit of a mean reversion? Yes, but I would look at that as more of an opportunity to maybe run some, you know, if you're into options and stuff, maybe run an options trade somewhere. Not too long, obviously, but especially if you're going to do, you know, buying options, because you don't want the time decay to get you, because the longer you keep a long option, the more the profits will erode. This is how it works. But yeah, I wouldn't be messing around with any longs because of the tariffs and because of all of that. But yeah, I was kind of watching this. Now let's just clean up this chart a bit on some of these levels that I had yesterday. So yeah, I wrote this probably about 3 weeks ago. Said weekly new all-time high, so we can reverse, question mark, because that still hasn't happened at the time. We were still sitting all the way up here. And here we are, 3 weeks later. So, you know, looking at these massive time frames can give you a bit of a context that maybe not all traders are looking at. But yeah, from an intraday perspective, some mean reversion could be on the cards unless we get more news, and then just Sell options. Yeah, be careful with selling options because they have an unlimited loss, especially if you're selling calls. Unlimited loss means that you're not protected against any upside move. And we have seen copper go up 1,800 ticks. That would get very painful and very expensive. So options trading should not be done lightly, especially if you're selling options, if you're writing them. But yeah, just if you do that, I would rather do it at a new all-time high. So yeah. But yeah, just off the cuff, selling options, say sell options. And then somebody might, go, well, it's brilliant. Time decay works in our favor. And if they don't have a lot of experience, that can get, life-changing and not in a good way if you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, educate. Bruno posted a risk disclaimer earlier. And just like... we always say this is for educational purposes only, even though most of us on TopstepTV have Series 3. We are not CTAs. We're not actually registered to be giving any advice or anything. So this is for educational purposes only, just to kind of be a fly on the wall of how some of us look at the markets and some of the important levels that we might be looking at. But then from there, it's all on you. If you have a similar trade in your plan already, feel free to do that. Just don't follow blindly, right? This is not a signal service. But yeah, copper, a bit tricky after that massive jump off a cliff yesterday. However, not unusual to see yet another, like look at this one, right? This was a similar thing, makes an all-time high and then huge jump down. But if you look carefully, it opened with a small gap down, went all the way down. So yet more selling there before they pulled it back. So yeah. We can have a mean reversion, but we don't know how much more shorts are actually in here. Because we're pretty high up. I mean, if you look at it on the monthly chart, where's our next demand there? Well, it's the major one that started this rise up is actually all the way down here. So there's a smaller one over here that actually got broken. So maybe just more of a range. I would say we definitely have more space down to about 415 maybe. And if it is a range bound market, then because it's summertime, then 415 might not be a bad area to look for those longs. We also have the visible volume range, volume point of control at 40335. So I think it might want to get down there before it does anything else. So yeah, caution with copper, everyone. These moves are not to be taken lightly. Now, crude oil in an interesting spot today. This is a weekly chart. I marked off, it's obviously in a range on a weekly chart. There's no doubt about it. Here's the range, right? So all of these popping into these areas and then just promptly shying away from them. We're now touching this supply, the most recent supply that we created, and it's an edge. I call the nearest edge of the supply the conterminous line, which was something I coined to shorten the name for market shift. So when I started looking at supply and demand in 2007, I was extremely successful trading that, but I noticed that these edges, the nearest edges of the point where the two candles at one point, in order for it to reverse, they were equal. They were an equilibrium. And then when that rolls over and holds underneath that, that creates that new supply that we may use for a retest and then a repeat of the same thing that happened the first time around. So it's a very important area, especially if the market tested for the first time. And here we are, first test on the last day of the month, which can bring some profit taking. So again, I have a couple of options running in and around this zone, and we'll see. One of them is expires like very quickly, but the other one is a slightly longer dated one. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, and maybe even intraday we might get a short today on crude oil. But for that, 70 really needs to break, and then we need to have a hold below the 70 level, because at the moment that is where the gamma wall is located as well. So if that breaks with quite some confidence, with no sort of passive buying wicks happening, like constantly popping back up whenever somebody tries to sell it, then we might have an intraday trade as well. What do we have on the value areas for crude oil? This is London session, so we're sitting just above the value right now. If it rolls down to fall into 69, 65 and then decides to close confidently inside it. When I mean confidently, I do not mean closing on the nose of the actual line, but I mean actually falling into it. We may have that special situation play that could bring us a full rotation. Now NYMEX is a little bit higher up. It's kind of overlapping, so NYMEX value just roughly is sort of sitting around here somewhere. So we're already inside it. Therefore, if we get to the NYMEX time zone and we're sitting below the value, that is bearish sentiment. So it's actually completely the opposite to what we have for the London session, but same outlook, right? Looking at the larger time frame context, we have a nearby supply, so therefore some selling should occur. And if not, I actually don't want to be a buyer here. I really don't, because I don't like buying into supplies. That's like, don't short into demands, don't buy into supplies until they're solidly broken, and then you can maybe run a liquidity grab, which is also then a short. So I don't know, longs are up here are just unless you're gonna run like a quick scalp or something, yeah, they're a bit icky. So yeah, that's the outlook. What is the range doing? So quantitative extreme for the day to the upside is actually 71.35, and then to the downside it actually lines up with the London value low. So down here is also full 24-hour ADR low. So I'm gonna pop that on there too. And currently London is attempting to extend the initial balance lower, but still ever so slightly popping back up. So we need to wait until that is a little clearer. And again, I don't know whether this is going to be a London trade or a NYMEX trade. It all depends how things set up. But certainly interesting. It's an interesting spot for crude oil. This is one of those once in 2 weeks when I actually might put a trade on in crude oil intraday. So yeah, let's pop down to the 30-minute chart. Still bunched up in this little Asia low area, and still kind of kept it. I mean, I don't think that we actually broke it. No, so Asia low still holding. If you want to know where the initial balance is located, that is these two candles. So we popped inside it. I mean, this is not really any kind of a sustained auction just yet. So I want to wait until they decide. I also don't like the failed auctions that start with a wick. Typically, a decent failed auction would need to close below value and then, below initial balance, so below this red box, and then to create either a 3-bar reversal or something similar that actually nicely accepts value. Now, today, the initial balance size is only 41 ticks. That's not, for me, that's not really enough to run any good failed auction trades to the upside. So I'm still going to be looking for those shorts even intraday. But yeah, let's wait and see what happens. Also not great that we're so close to the value here and the initial balance low. They're not very far at all. And that usually means some contextual battle might be happening here. So again, I would really like to see some commitment before I do anything. Sasa Trading, why Topstep not taking new combine? Why Topstep not taking new combine? It's probably because it's switching everything over to the new dashboard. And yeah, the I think they've had some minor growing pains, so just please be patient until they sort that out. You will be able to get back to purchasing combines. However, if you've gone over 10 combines per month, Topstep is actually, to my knowledge, the only firm that will prevent churning of the combines. So they actually put a limit. I think it's 10 per month. Again, I don't do too many combines at all because I do have a live account, which I'm currently trying to only trade for the what I call the post and white cut time zone, and that's after 3 p.m. my time, that's after 9 a.m. Central, and sort of in and around the Euro close. So yeah, but yeah, they will, you know, they'll sort it out. Pi says liquidity graph ICT style. Well, strange enough you say ICT style. I've known about it for long before we heard about ICT. You know, there is a setup in equities, like in DAX in particular. There's a setup called the Frankie Fakeout, and we used to play that even in Forex back in the day. And what it would entail. Now I'm going to bring over my DAX chart because obviously we don't have it on Topstep. So to illustrate this, I need to show you, right, rather than just talking about it. So Frankie Fakeout means that Frankfurt Exchange, which actually starts an hour earlier than London, usually makes a fake out move. So whatever Frankfurt does, it ends up being not the move that London is going to take. Now, how long the reversal is going to take, it's, you know, and how far that reversal goes, that's another matter altogether. Usually on shorts, in and around all-time highs, they're a bit precarious. I did run this trade a couple of days ago. Was that last week? No, it was a few days ago. That was Monday. So that was a really, really good trade. I took a decent amount out of it, but it actually went all the way to 4R. I wasn't in all the way. I think I took it somewhere around 24.70 or something. So took, you know, the majority of that, but yeah. And now we may also have a day when we unwind, right? It's the last day of the month. Take profit moves are on the cards. And bit of a volume shelf here. That might be difficult to break. But yeah, Frankie Fakeout is what it used to be known. So, yeah. Bruno says, yes, 10 new combines per month. That's the limit. Yeah, end of the month shenanigans. Bring it on, right? Pi says, true, ICT just stole and repackaged old concept coin and new and groundbreaking. Yeah, and called himself an algorithm as well. But look, anytime, aside from the mad stories that he tells, anyone who puts any sort of structure into your trading, I don't have too much of a problem with that. I, you know, usually have a problem with the MIB stories and claiming that someone one man invented everything. So that's a bit out there, right? Especially knowing that something like Market Profile that has single prints, which are literally FVGs, they've been doing that since 1986. That's when the first book came out. That's when Peter Steidelmeier came up with the whole concept of distribution curves and being away from the distribution curve and coming back. And then I noticed myself through the post and white cut option expiry, which again I was taught in by a friend who was, you know, in the Forex world. He worked for a bank, then he went to work for a prop firm, and they were really always waiting for that New York cut, which is literally 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central is when the Forex options expire every single day, right? So the bigger the option, the more chances of a reversal happening in and around that time. That's why I don't like to trade before at least the first half hour of the New York Stock Exchange opens. Because you have that thing hanging over your head, and then after that you also have the euro close, which can bring yet another reversal. Now in copper, because we have the LME close 10 minutes after euro close, so you have euro close, and then 10 minutes after London Metal Exchange closes, you actually have this extra pump that extends the gains or the losses on the day in metals. So, you know, if you're ever wondering, oh, gold is turning around after euro close, what's going on there? It's because that's the additional move for the LME. Because they have this thing called curb trading, where in the last 10 minutes they trade all the metals, and obviously that can have quite a big impact. So yeah, all of these like mechanistic ways of the markets doing their thing, it's useful to know. And then, you know, I heard that ICT has this thing called the manipulation and 10, like, what is it, 9:45 macro? Well, what do you think that is? It's like post NY cut, you have that reversal. It's the same thing, just, you know, call it what you like, right? Call it whatever you want, as long as it brings structure to your trading. But just know that those of us who have been watching the markets for long enough, we've all observed the same event. You know, it's all the same price action. It's all the same thing. Paul H says, I didn't know Frankfurt opened 1 hour before us. That explains a lot what I'm saying. Yeah, and Paul, remember that Eurex is a smaller exchange, right? So when they try and push their little volumes, it's more than Asia, but then not as much as London. So what has to happen is that Frankfurt is like, we're going up, and then London comes in and smashes all the levels and go, no, you're not, because we're bigger. And yeah, there's always that, especially if you have a very, very well-defined Asia high or Asia low. That's when it's like most pronounced. Sometimes when it's not that clear and Asia's been a little bit range bound, but no, like, you know, drifting around. Is it going up? Is it going down? Nobody knows. So that can be a little bit sketchy. But usually you see Eurex trying to take it one way and then London reversing it. So that is my setup called Frankie Fake Out. And if I'm awake in the morning, I will be doing that. But quite frequently, it takes quite some time for the reversal to happen. So it's not like the New York Open where it's like, we're open, there's a million contracts trading. It's all just like, okay, we're open, we're awake. Let's go. Please could I drop some hints about platinum? Platinum. All right. So platinum, I have a level down at 1300. It is a put support and also put support from 0 DTEs. So we are going to have option expiries as well, actually today. So yeah, that could be a magnet. Wouldn't be longing platinum just here. But yeah, if you're looking for maybe a bigger swing or something, that could be definitely something to have a look at. What else? 1350 to the upside if it ever gets up there. Right now it's struggling around Globex VWAP. So let's also have a look at that on Topstep. Platinum. These are all levels because I haven't traded platinum today or yesterday. So yeah, what are we doing when it comes to the value areas? All right, so thing with platinum, much like gold, it tends to have this weird period of 2 hours of doing nothing for London before they really decide where to take it, because LME is not open yet. We have a big outlier value area and we're below it right now, quite a bit below it. Let's have a look at larger time frames first. So let's go monthly chart. Bird's eye view. Let's be crows. Back into the range that we've been stuck in for quite a while, years. And this was COVID, post-COVID high. We went over it, liquidity grab, liquidity vacuum, and then back into the range. So right now the breakout failed. Unless it climbs back over 1383 on this contract, longs might be a little bit tricky. But hey, it's a bird's eye view, so let's not be completely exclusive of longs, because mean reversions are a thing intraday, especially if we get late in the day. Yeah, I mean, this one also, weekly chart, falling back into the range. Pretty strong candle from yesterday, smashed down. Nothing else much. I mean, is this some structure that would need repair? Probably not, because it was a pretty normal rise up, I would say. You know, a little bit overlapping, obviously, with all these selling wicks, because that kept happening. So they would go up in the morning, then they would sell it. They would go up in the morning, they would sell it. They would go up, and then they would sell it. So that pattern continued. But yeah, it's not any kind of a single print or anything. We didn't leave any structure that would need repair. But the rise up is smooth on the weekly chart. Now on the daily chart, looking a little bit more sketchy. So every time you have overlapping values, that means more volume was built there. And it becomes more difficult to just break it unless we have, you know, some news like yesterday FOMC. Otherwise, this is what it tends to look like, right? So there's a lot of push, pull, and then the bodies of the candles are not that big. So this is also called supply and demand compression. It doesn't happen that often, especially not on the daily chart, but here we are. It's basically when we make a new demand, then we try to get it up from it. So here's some markers to illustrate that. We try to get up, then we go and test it. Then we try to get up, and then you create yet another demand on top of that. Now this one didn't get tested, but it still created yet another demand a little bit higher up, and then moved away, then tested it, then moved away, then another one, and then kept kind of compressing and creating more demands until we get to one of them, and then smash, we kind of smash through three of them. That's called supply and demand compression, and usually ends up as a shakeout to the opposite side, taking out at least two of them, sometimes even all of them in one fell swoop. So yeah. You can sometimes look for these even on smaller time frames, but obviously bigger time frames are much more relevant because they have so much more trading information in them. Let's see if this crude oil can actually start hanging below the initial balance. That's what we're looking for. 4-hour chart, platinum. Signs of reversal. Again, this was Asia. Right now, it's kind of failing to bring any follow-through. We, call it a 3-bar reversal. To me, this is more an inside-up pattern. Why? Because this middle candle is not a doji. So I am pretty big on, I have this thing called, course called Candlestick Workshop. And we actually went through a whole bunch of patterns, but only ended up on about 4 or 5 that actually have a very well-defined thing to fall back on when it comes to probabilities. 3 inside up pattern is something that usually fails to bring serious follow-through, and the candle that results as a third candle is usually the most that you're going to get, and that goes for nearly all time frames apart from like the tiny time frames, the micro time frames, because things get very, very tricky with lower and lower time frames. They have a lot of noise in them, but this is a 4-hour chart. So for now, 3 inside up has failed to bring a higher high and has also failed to bring any sort of follow through in the same direction. So right now I would actually classify this more as a range rather than any opportunity to kind of run breakout trades. So until this changes, maybe look at 1350 as the top, and then I would actually, just seeing where they bounced it from, I would actually use the close of this big red candle and the open of the next little mini candle as the range. And then I will be looking at this wick. It's just like a bit of an overshoot of that 1300 level. But 1300 to me today still remains in a pain point, an area where we could see prices coming back to as a magnet. And then maybe, just maybe, we might have some more longs there. But later in the day, I'm not sure how much power London would have on that. But that is a put support, both from the regular options and the 0 DTEs. Could they just run this through and continue? Yeah, that is absolutely a hypothesis on an option expiry. So yeah, this would be more of an orientation point. I don't like advising people to go, oh yeah, just use it as if this and then else. Kind of like, oh, if it breaks, then we go short. I don't like that. If I'm gonna go short, I would like to pick something higher, so 1350, and then failing that 1400, because that's also been a very, very big level for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, have different price points when you want to be a clear buyer or a clear seller, not the same area when you want to be a buyer or a seller. That tends to get people in trouble, especially if you're staring at like small time frames. Maybe if you're looking at the 30-minute chart and using that as your orientation, that could be a workaround. But anything lower, and I feel like people get themselves chopped up so much trying to go long and short and long and short and long and short, and before you know, they're like $600 deep in losses, and they still don't know where the price is gonna run because they're rushing to get into it. And by the way, that tends to happen a lot around these important options levels, especially if they're weaker, like let's say GEX 5 or GEX 8. You know, you have a level, you see it's reactive, but you're not quite sure, and then they keep kind of coming up to it, then coming back away from it, then slowly popping above it, and then coming down, and then eventually they decide what they're going to do. So don't get caught up in that. It's very dangerous. And you know, those flipping and flopping trades, as I like to call them, typical sign of grasshoppering. My grasshopper hat is a little bit out of reach right now. But yeah. Chef is asking whether we can take a look at gold. Yeah, we can take a look at gold. I don't have their options levels just yet. They haven't really updated it for the new contract. So I'm not too keen on trading gold on rollover weeks either. So I know that some people are like, oh, but yesterday was such a good move down. Yesterday was an outlier day, right? We had FOMC. Today we have option expiry. Tomorrow we have NFP, and we just rolled, which means that the prices and the volume will be split between the old contract while people are still rolling over, and the new contract. So things get a little bit sketchy on the probability side. I don't trust the probabilities on these weeks. Luckily, gold doesn't roll that often. You know, it's not like crude oil where on the dot it rolls every 17th of the month. It's not like that. It skips over a few, just like other metals as well. And like I said in the beginning of this stream, it's all to do with the requirement for the deliveries of the producers, and then users. The users need deliveries of the metals to happen for certain seasonalities, and this is why you see these odd rolls into random months, seemingly. Short life hacks. You want action, CL and GC? It is. I don't know about CL, man. I'm seeing. I don't think CL is very good for everyday intraday trading, I'll be honest. And this is coming from somebody who traded CL and GC almost exclusively for 12 years. Those were like my two main products. That was like my bread and butter for a long, long time. And then last year, with the whole, I don't know what happened to crude oil. Like short life hacks, you've been around for a long time. You've been trading for 20 years as well. Do you not think that crude oil is now a little bit just like headline driven? Like whatever there's a headline, it goes nuts, and then all the other days it's just so quiet. So to me, options are the way to run crude, because there's no way you can catch some of these crazy moves after Trump opens his mouth on an intraday level, unless you're like extra lucky and then you just happen to be in with a stop loss that is not massive, and then it just goes your way. I don't like doing that. I don't like, being lucky. And with the options, you don't necessarily have to use any kind of stops. Like, you can, of course, use combinations of options as a sort of a stop placement. And I think these days you can even do it on the actual option price. But, if you are, like, let's say just running let's say I'm bearish on crude oil. If I'm just running a long put, doesn't matter what it does. Ultimately, if I catch the right direction, that's going to be it. All you need is just a bit of volatility, which is what Trump brings us, right? But intraday, it's been so meh. Like, even 2 years ago, it had about 180 to 200 tick range every single day. Like, you would wake up, you can expect 200 ticks. And not all in one 30-minute time frame as well. That's another problem with it. Last year, I just couldn't believe it. I was looking at NYMEX, and it was doing absolutely nothing. Like, it would do one move for initial balance and then get stuck in a 30-tick range. So it wouldn't even give you enough opportunities to adjust your expectations because it was just so dead. And both me and Coach Hoop, we were like, what's going on with crude oil, man? It's like... And then I remember Dakota mentioned last year, he was like, crude oil is pretty slow, it's very different. And I was like, it never used to be slow. And now, like, people are thinking it's slow. It's like, no, it's not. And now when it does, it's old, glimpse of the old crude oil every so often. We've seen it yesterday and the previous day. And people are like, oh man, what's going on with crude oil? It's like, no, that's what it used to do. Now it's not doing it often enough. So it's like, what? Oh, Pi has a good question. When does Platinum roll? Platinum is in October already, so it's not actually going to roll until October. So we're good there. We don't have to worry. Desmond, I don't have any GEX levels yet for gold because they haven't really updated it yet. We literally rolled into the December contract yesterday. And it takes a little bit of time to aggregate the data and to actually see whether people are actually rolling into December as well. So there will be some people who will still be in October contract for the options. So that may take a couple of days to come through. So I'm not going to be trading gold this week. Unless it's like later in the day and I can kind of fall back on one of my playbooks. They don't really use... they don't need to use option levels. I use like time of day for that. So we get to a certain time of day and then, we see whether the market is going to do anything. So yeah, but let's maybe just have a look at the structures, right? Because there's many different ways of looking at things. And of course, in the morning, my throat decides to want to clear itself in and around about this time. Granny D. Let's do more water. Maybe that'll help. One worry that I have here is that we do have a pretty big drop, obviously, from yesterday. Sitting at 33.80 level, let's say. I don't want to do, weird numbers. It's like, 33.79.4. No, because options levels are driving this market as well. So it's a bit more slippy. But yeah, let's call it 33.80 as a roadblock for me. What was that? That was the rollover. Yeah. So this is the old contract. This is the new contract. When they adjust the prices, so it's not some weird gap. I don't think that contract rollover gaps are that great because they just represent the adjustment of the contract. It's not a true gap, so to speak. Close there, open there. It's just a contract rollover. Hypo on copper. I have no hypos on copper. I'm being vigilant into the end of the month. We already had a jump off a cliff. But at the moment, copper just looks pretty quiet today outside of no tariff news and stuff. So we'll see. Raspy as always, Cactus Leo says. Yeah. Croaky, man. It's not raspy. Don't think I have a raspy voice. Just croaky, yeah. Ribbit. Froggy D. Thomas Swinton, how do you see options levels? I just use my psychic powers. I just go, options levels. No, I'm joking. I use MentorQ. MentorQ is a company that aggregates the options levels and then spews them out on the chart as one line on the chart. If you look on my Twitter, which is kindly posted underneath this video by Topstep, you will see I actually posted, this is the biggest question I always get. Dee, where do you get your options levels? So there is a link in my Twitter, on my Twix, X, whatever we call it these days. So go there. And it's literally like the second post. So I have the Chameleonaires VIP post. And then right underneath that, I have the FAQ. So check them out. They are probably the only company that also looks at other options. Obviously I'm a commodities trader. So just looking at ES and SPX and all of that, I don't it's like, okay, I trade DAX, that's great, but what about gold? What about platinum? What about copper? What about natural gas? Most options aggregating companies, they only look at QQQs, they look at SPX, SPYs, and very, very kind of narrow scope of products offered, and yet MentorQ has nearly everything. Like they literally, if there's an option in that product, any sort of option activity, they will have it. And then even if they don't, like let's say YM has no notable options, no activity there, they will actually go to create sort of like a conversion, I think you can call it, from the correlated products like S&P, whether it's SPX or ES, you can actually also convert them yourself in MentorQ indicators. So it's a really, really good company, I have done some webinars for them as well, and I love the work that Fabio is doing, so definitely check them out. Like it's so useful because especially these days we have 63%, especially in ES, that comes from options volume. Like that is what drives the intraday flows these days. We have the market makers that use options to do their hedging. They have to maintain a delta neutral stance. What does that mean? Well, they need to make sure that their risk exposure is not skewed to either side, and therefore they need to be on the opposite side of whatever their investors are doing, but then they actively have to long and short whenever something happens that brings, like let's say they are they're positive gamma. What does that mean? It means that they are long, which is usually the opposing side to whatever the investors have done. So let's say the market makers are long gamma, and then there's like a massive drop in the market. They will have to then buy. This is why you see these like big massive bounces after like huge sell-offs. They have to buy in order to get back to a delta neutral state, if that makes sense. Okay, a little bit tricky to get your head around, but also when you have big sell-offs that just keep going, the fact that they are trying to remain neutral, their activities can also exacerbate the move in the same direction. So it works both ways. It's not just like, oh yeah, it's just every time there's a rally they sell it, and every time there's a drop they will buy it. No, there is a lot of that, But when there's a clear single direction move that just starts running through all the other options levels and open interest that we may have as reference, the market making activities can exacerbate those moves even further, right? So that's what happened in copper yesterday. And because there was no notable bounce, this is why I'm not really in favor of long copper just yet until they sort of show their hand a little bit later in the day. That's why I'm being super, super kind of chill and not really chasing any trades today. If I was somebody who traded Asia, I can see that Asia actually had some pretty smooth moves, but I don't trade Asia often. Like I maybe trade it like 3 or 4 times a year. I like my sleep. I go to bed pretty early. Sometimes I'm in bed by like the New York Stock Exchange close, and that's like 9 p.m. over here. I love sleep. I need sleep. I'm, not in my 20s or 30s anymore. And I found that the older I got, the more sleep I needed. So right now I need like at least 8 hours. Some days I need 9 or 10 in order to make my brain work at a peak level and to be able to get through the day. And sometimes I also need naps. If I've had a bit of a difficult London session where it's just all push, pull, and not really making a move anywhere. Whoa, crude oil is making a move. Okay, that's good. Let's see what's going on in the dome. So some sellers down at 67. We have a little bit of a volume here. What's the time? Right, we've got 10 minutes before the next 30-minute close. Tell you what, I'm going to front run this idea of sustained auction in a micro. And then if it carries on, we can then add a mini. So let's do 5 micros here as a front run of a sustained auction. Whoops. Need to change that. I'm going to use a 35 tick stop like I always do on crude oil. And I'm not going to be looking for a lot of action here. I'm just going to do 70 ticks. We have a bit of demand ahead of that. And also, this is right above the 69 at level, even though I think we have room to 68 and more, because it's the last day of the month. So if they really start to kind of plow downwards, this was a good move. We had a fair amount of volume coming through. These guys here, 49, 50, they need to stay. Would have preferred to see a couple of the 50s to act as kind of like a shelf to the upside. Otherwise, they might run through that and then go back down. Negative delta for now is actually falling off after this. Delta is going even more negative after this fall, but has stabilized in the last minute or so. So let's see if they can actually come and get these guys down here at 69, 61. That's the bigger order. Then we have some more on the downside, and then upside pretty thin, right? pretty thin to the upside. So we'll see. Again, crude oil, is this like the right, is this the right time of day? Well, sometimes this is where the inconsistency of crude oil, when it's going to move. Like before we knew NYMEX, like the sort of like the major day trading time zone will be from like my 2 p.m. I'm in England. So that's London time. So it would be from about 2 p.m. all the way to about 5 p.m. Then we would have a bit of a dead zone for that New York time lunch hour. And then they would have yet another pump and another increase in volume for the 90 minutes of NYMEX. That sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't happen. These days, again, the inconsistency of crude oil has increased. The volume, like I'm going to show you, actually, I was talking to Coach Hoop, because we talk a lot with friends and trading buddies as well. We do have very different styles, but we have very similar analysis on higher time frames though. So we were actually looking at volumes, and I do have like some long-term a long-term chart. Again, it's on my different platform, so I wanted to illustrate this just to show you. I only have it up to 2017, right? But look at the volumes that we were doing in May 2018 versus the volume that we're doing now. Like, absolutely pathetic, right? Absolutely pathetic. Like, what is this? Someone poke it with a stick, please. So yeah, overall, from those very massive time frames, crude oil volume is just going down, down, and down. It's not good. So yeah. Jace is asking me, have you ever traded off previous days' highs and lows? No, I haven't, because usually commodities don't, like, that is more, if you have a range, and if you have, let's say, an equity index, that's an excellent way to run things, especially something like a thicker market, like an ES, that doesn't tend to run through highs and lows massively. For commodities, they tend to have a different behavior. So if you're going to have a mean reversion and, they start to really plow in, there is no tests of previous high or low. It's just like they just go, right? And then you would be missing out on, like, for example, we had this algorithm that did exceptionally well for like 3 whole years in and around COVID, and it was the break of the initial balance for NYMEX, and then just like a 200 tick move up or down, and it would change every day. It would be either up or down. This is just the nature of commodities. They generally don't have as well of a defined trend as equities. Sometimes they do, but most times not. So it's a different behavior. The highs and lows, yeah, you can look at them. But I prefer to have something else happening there. Either a gamma wall or some kind of quantitative extreme there, ADR low, ADR high, in the way that I'm using them. So looking at it from the 10 days perspective and then plotting them as levels. I also use a dynamic measure. I have a software development company that creates all of these indicators and stuff that we need. Like, it's something that I needed as a trader, and that's how the company came about, right? I commissioned somebody to create something that I did not see on the market, and I still don't really see it on the market apart from us. I see people trying to emulate us, but they're doing it wrong. Like, I've talked about this before, where I look at their quantitative extremes and it's the fixed daily range. Like, that's not the same measure, guys. So yeah, we are working on getting them on some other platforms. What's the time? 5 minutes to the 30-minute close. If that happens, I might be able to increase this to 1.5. So we're going to be 1 mini and 5 if this 30-minute time frame manages to close below the initial balance. But if it closes too deep into value, or if it just drops sub 69.66, it's too big of a drop. So I'm just going to keep the original position. Paul H says going into a meeting. We'll be back later today. Paul H, by the way, is going to be with us next Thursday here on TopstepTV Eurotrade. So yeah, looking forward to having him on. We also have another guest on Monday. You may have heard of him. His name is Mo. So Mo is going to be joining us on Monday, which I'm super excited for. I love Mo. So yeah, Jace, I personally don't really put too much attention into previous highs and lows because, like I said, crude oil is more likely to reach the previous day's supply. That's the thing. But not all the way down to the sheer highs and lows. So let me see if I have anything here. Yeah, if we are like running, if we're turning around, maybe you can look at the low. If it's far enough away, maybe you can look at that. But usually the round numbers and 0.25 and 0.75s, so quarters and 3/4, they tend to be better levels, regardless of where the day's high and low is located. However, because we're so high up, look at where how much it missed the previous day's high. It missed it by about 15 ticks, right? Maybe even more. So if you were waiting for that, and then here comes the mean reversion here. They open the day. They don't really fully test the low either. And this is Asia. So if you trade Asia, maybe you can catch those. But I find that by the time that we get halfway through the day, when I'm starting to trade crude, we're still far away from those levels. And you're usually getting involved in and around this area, aiming to get like either a mean reversion or something somewhere halfway through. And that's why initial balance and value areas is distribution curves for orientation. For those mean reversions, they're actually a good way to find extra trades, even if you're away from those highs and lows of the previous days. But yeah, it works really well in equities because it's a thinner market. Here you have previous day high, and it just overshoots it, then fakes it out massively. Like this is a pretty big wick, so that wouldn't have worked. And then goes all the way down, but never quite reaches that low. So, yeah, crude oil to me is just not, like if you're waiting for that, I just don't think it's a particularly efficient way to trade crude oil, in my opinion. I think gold probably does more of that because it's got more of a connection to equities, and it's kind of reactive to sort of the same effects, same events as equities. Whereas crude oil has its own thing. Yesterday throughout the entire FOMC, it was just like chilling. Like, we don't care. Whatever. Interest rates are the same. There's no change. So it maybe moved about like 20 ticks up and down. And now it's decision day. So post FOMC. So we'll see. All right. Bit of a buying wick. Lower low. Would have liked to see this as a more committed move down. So I'm not going to be adding because in my eyes, the sustained auction, if it's going to really go, and I'm going to go in with a bit more size, I would need to see better price action. So let's just stick with 5 micros, okay? Short Life Hack says, I think it's also the US drill mandate might tighten the CL volatility. Yeah, I agree. There's a whole bunch of things that it's just not super. And let's look at the crude oil supply, right? We have like 150 years maybe left of fossil fuels before we're in trouble. I mean, I'm going to be long dead at that point, but for those of you who are much younger, or the up and coming generations, it's a huge problem. If we don't find some sort of a proper replacement, I don't know what's going to happen to Earth. Like, can we use solar energy? Maybe. But that's right now not very efficient still. It's getting better. So maybe it's going to get very efficient in 150 years. But yeah, it's, it should be going up because we're running out of it. It's a finite resource. What do we do then, what do we do then? We, I don't know, go to Mars? I can see why Elon wants to go to Mars, right? Have you seen that comet? We have another weird comet. Or maybe not comet. Maybe it's aliens. I don't know. You seen the news? We have another interstellar object that we can now track. We had that one that was there in 2017, and then by the time we noticed it, it just shot right out of the solar system, doing some very weird maneuvers. So, is it another scout? Are we finally getting noticed by the galactic community? Abed is asking me yesterday, talking about Delta. Yeah, they don't have it yet. They're working on it. Okay, so let's just put some realistic timelines here. Everybody's complaining, you know, how Topstep doesn't have this and doesn't have that and doesn't have. So they've put their priorities into the risk tools first. I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I think that not having risk tools on a platform that's trying to help people, it's terrible, you know. But Topstep has given us all of these lovely risk tools. First and foremost, any indicators that are, so I love the trade limits, I love the contract limits, and I love the symbol block. Absolutely salivating over those three, especially the maximum trades per day. That, if anything, if you have trouble over trading, just look at your best days and look at how many trades you've done. There's analytics in this platform as well. So look at that and then just put that as your maximum trades per day. So if you start to go a little nuts on the day, the platform is just going to lock you out. You have to lock out the risk settings as well. That's the first thing that I do on my live. So before I even start anything, my first habit is to go into risk, lockout settings for the day. I actually like doing that for Globex. So if I'm still awake, I will do it. If I'm not awake, I will do it first thing in the morning. Or whenever I open up my live account. And there is a timeline usually of 3 to 5 years to, if you're going to build all the indicators from scratch in a new platform. It is not an easy task. It takes time, especially if we're going to do it properly. So for now, both me and Hogue and a whole bunch of other people have some other platforms. Obviously, we've been trading for a very long time. We have some of our tools that, you know, Topstep for me is more an execution platform. So to me, I don't need to have any old indicator that I use elsewhere. In Topstep, I can just have a glance over. I pay for all of those services already. And it's just like, I'm going to look at Delta on Bookmap, right? So for example, I have the CVD, that's cumulative volume delta indicator on Bookmap. Is it cheap? No, hell no. Like Bookmap, just to get it as a platform and like a subscription for certain products, that can cost you a lot. I think just the license is $89 per month, $89 per month. I usually connect it to anything where I have level 2 data, and it's usually, you know, a prop account somewhere where I already pay for level 2 data. And that's how I look at it, right? This is crude oil, so we're looking at it. I also have some extra indicators that tell me when there's like some bigger trades happening, and exhaustion and absorption and things like that. But yeah, so Delta is here. So we can see when it flipped negative. This is why I was a little bit more confident, because we were positive, and then it started going negative, and it has been bleeding ever since. It can be a pretty decent indicator. It can also happen the other way, like if there's unwinding happening and shorter term traders keep going against it, the delta is actually going to be showing positive whilst the price is dropping. So people are like, what the hell? Well, it's because the shorter term aggressive traders are picking bottoms, getting run over, and fueling the move to the downside, exacerbating the move. So, you know, don't be that. But right now, delta congruent with direction here, and congruent with the sustained auction that I was looking for. We are knocking on the London value high, which is a danger zone. We also have NYMEX value low here, because obviously it was a bit higher up for NYMEX. Let's see if it accepts value. This is the next orientation point, the next danger zone. So if we break this, we should have some sort of a roll nicely. We have GEX 2 as well, so sorry, didn't see that. 69.50 and then 69. If we can tackle 69.50 nicely, that's a good one. GEX 2 is pretty strong. So again, break of that is a pretty big deal. If it doesn't do it, and again, I'm expecting a little bit of a reaction there. It might not just gonna bleed through it unless we get a hell of a ton of volume in there. And I already see there's this guy here at 86, like kind of sitting and waiting like Bob over there. Like, I'm going to take your order. I'm going to bounce it. I'm going to scare you so that you get out of your shorts. But he's not going to scare me because I'm the queen of holding trades forever. Like, I can hold intraday trades for like 7 hours. Not always, but, you know. Okay, what is going on in chat? Abid says I'm not complaining. No, I'm not saying you're complaining. I just know that the chat broadcast is like, you know. So yeah, I'll use it on Bookmap. So it's probably the quickest way to get it. If you don't mind spending a bit of cash, that's the way to do it for now. I don't know whether other platforms have it. I really don't. Like, I think maybe Quantower has it, but I'm not entirely sure. I like looking into Bookmap because it's very nicely visualized. And like I said, then I connect it to a random account where I have level 2 data, and it all just populates nicely. You can buy data through Bookmap as well, but for some reason I never really gel with that. They always have like weird symbols. I have no idea what I'm looking at, and I'm like, I'm not going to spend, you know, the best days of my life trying to figure out how to bring out like, you know, mini DAX on their weird data. So yeah, for me it's just connected to like either TraderVate or Ninja, or I like connecting it to TraderVate because it's fairly straightforward. Their connector on Bookmap is really good. So there we go. That's how I use it. Yeah, I agree. Barrel says we should have started way earlier thinking about being more green, etc. Just human nature. We always find a solution when it becomes hard. Yeah, it's kind of like in trading, right? You will only look for the solution when the trading starts to be a little bit on the sucky side. And guess what? That's how most of us have been around the block here for 2 decades. That's how we came up with a whole bunch of coping mechanisms. It's not because, you know, everything was peachy and we never needed to adapt. It's because things start to suck and you're like, okay, that worked, but now this is not working. Now I need to look for another solution to this. So some critical thinking. And then you go, how do I solve this? How do I solve this? Yeah. Deeyana, can you please show us the dog behind you? I actually have a few dogs. I don't know which one. Oh, that's Lenny. I think you see Lenny behind me. Is that right? He is very old, and I don't like, he doesn't like being picked up because he's a bit grumpy. And he's deaf. That one is deaf. So he's the daddy of all of my puppies. And he is going to turn 13. Hopefully he'll still be alive in September 11th, on September 11th. So yeah, but I have no way of calling him up because he is deaf and he's asleep right now. So unless I had like ham or sausage so he can like smell it, he would then wake up, but I cannot get him. There's no way to get his attention, and I don't like touching him when he's asleep. Because again, he's also got a heart condition, bless him. He's doing well. He's still, you know, lively. He loves his walkies, goes walkies 4 times a week. And then he goes doggy daycare for 4 hours on Fridays. So he's all right. But yeah. VVS Sir says, what time will your coaching sessions be? So I'm going to aim to have them Chicago time early in the morning. Usually I like to do them sort of pre-market. So it's probably going to be anywhere between 7 and 9 a.m. Central, because most people tend to be awake already by then, and most people like to already start their pre-market analysis. So I think it's a very good time to run sessions at that time of the day. And then also if somebody is located in you know, in Asia or Australia, they can just about catch the evening session. That would be the evening for them. whereas the rest, and then London is easy because that's like sort of midday over here or something. 1 p.m. my time, yeah. So that's going to be sort of the time, and it's also the time when I'm not trading, which is important. So, you know, if I want to give my attention to the lecture, we will pull up charts, absolutely, especially if I'm talking about concepts. But the first lecture that I'm going to be doing is really going to be more introductions, what I expect from them, some ground rules, you know, because I found that the first season that I did, people were just, first of all, everybody took 2.5 months before they started looking at other instruments, and then we started looking at some people having success because they moved away from NQ. So I'm going to change that this time around. We're going to be looking at other things immediately, because if you are in the VIP, presumably you want to improve your skills, and presumably you're there because some parts of the intraday trading are not working for you. So we're going to have a look at system design first and foremost, but also introductions, how to approach a combine, what is the real goal in the VIP, and it is not to get to the XFA and payout, it is to improve your skills. If you get there, awesome, but it's going to be a result of a good trading practice. It's not going to be the other way around where you misbehaved. And in fact, the two people who passed in the first week, they were out. Like the guy passed on a Thursday, he lost his XFA on a Monday. And then another person passed the following week, they already lost it the next day. Don't do that, right? Right, more selling coming in and more negative delta. Unwinding begins. Okay. That's now a real sustained auction, and we're now creating single prints below the initial balance. Sorry, fair value gaps. I am going to keep calling them single prints because, you know, I'm old. Right, what's the time? All right, we've got 15 minutes. We can sit here. We can sit here. All right, we bled through the GEX 2. That's a good sign. So if we just get to GEX 1 at 69, I'm going to be happy with that. And in fact, my take profit is a few ticks above that. When does the VIP start again? And some of my other dogs freaking out. My sister said, we're not old, we're vintage. Yes. We are seasoned. Seasoned. Yeah. Sure, life hacks, lol, sad. Hence why I can't do XFA. I can't afford to lose my live accounts. Yeah, exactly. Can't the dog sense vibrations? Yeah, but I have like concrete floor, I'm pretty sure, underneath here, and don't think those vibrations. Don't think there's any vibrations. Like in our old like Victorian cottage house, we had like very old floorboards that have probably been there from the 1800s. So he was able to feel what was going on in the entire house. Here, we have like floors that are kind of engineered oak in the main part of the house, and then some tiles obviously in the kitchen. So he can't sense anything. There's no vibrations anyway. It's such a quiet house. Like, it's amazing. He's actually trained himself. He's trained himself to feel vibrations. Okay, we've got a bit of stuff going on here on the dome. 34th, 26, 58. Let's see if they're strong enough to break that. Delta is still negative. Chilled out a little bit, but we're below the 50 now. So unless this like whips it up, we should be good. Should be good for 69. So yeah, it's remarkable how much adaptation Lenny my older doggy, has gone through. Like he's adapted so well. We've always taught hand signals along with the commands, so he knows that. We had to come up with a few new ones since we decided he's deaf as opposed. Like I said yesterday, ears at this point on Lenny, purely decorative. He has a King Charles Cavalier, so he does have pretty awesome ears, but they do not work. Bruno says, not old, fully developed. Yeah, fully developed, yeah. Well, I'm certainly not going to grow anymore, unless it's sideways. Not that I grew anyways, I'm 5'1". So, you know. But, you know, most of my family is the immediate family. We actually have some giants outside of the immediate family, but my immediate family is all pretty short. Yeah, so when it comes to dogs, I like to use them as the examples of how to live in the now. We actually touched upon that quite a bit yesterday and during the Neuro Wednesday. And as a trader, you need to strive to be more in the now and to not dwell too much on what's happened. So obviously Lenny lost his hearing as an adult. He lost it when he was 9, started losing it at 9, and then we didn't really notice until he was about 10. And I noticed because I was calling him. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking away, and I had a treat for him. And I said, Lenny, come for a Bicky, because we call biscuits Bickies over here. And Bicky used to be the thing that used to come make him running, right? And I said, come for Bicky, and he's just not reacting. So I was like, called his name again. I shouted at him, nothing. So I said to my husband, I said, James, I think Lenny might be deaf. So we actually tried to call him when he's not looking, nothing. And then I decided to get up to his ear and just to see if he has any sound. And I said, Lenny! I literally shouted in his ear. And he just didn't even flinch. And he used to be a dog that we used to call him the salmon. Because you would walk anywhere near him and he would just flip up like a fish. But he stopped doing that as well. So I'm like, okay, he's deaf. So we had to add a couple of new ones, like for din-dins, for food, you know, when it's dinner time. This is the sign, so that was a new one. And we didn't have a sign for walkies either. So that's become this. So that's walkies. So you go like this to him and he gets all excited. So it's amazing how he's just adapted to everything. I think he can still hear a little bit when all of our other 7 dogs are kicking off and barking like lunatics, because they do that. And he will then act as if he can hear it. I don't know whether he hears it or he just sees it, but he does seem to pop up and kind of like start reacting to it. But it has to be like super high decibels in order for him to register anything. And yet, doesn't bother him at the slightest, lives his life, still fetches his ball, slower than he used to, obviously, but still goes, you know, hour walk 4 times a week, plus doggy daycare 4 hours on a Friday. Happy as Larry. So yeah, let's be more dog, right? Let's live in the moment. Let's not dwell on what has been. Yeah, Sandy, I'm gonna say your name is quite a mouthful. You need something more catchy. It's like what? So yeah. I would make that a little bit more catchy, definitely. Just constructive criticism there. Short life hacks. Oh, terrible. I think my lab has a tumor growing on her right bum. Did some blood tests. Hopefully it's all good. Have a look at turkey tail. I know that, you know, if they say it's serious, dogs tend to do take chemo, but you can always take additional sort of homeopathic things. So have a look at turkey tail. Turkey tail is a mushroom. and it's been known to have some anti-cancer properties. There's been some studies done on it, not terribly serious, but have a look into Paul Stamets. And yeah, it might be something that you might want to add to your lab's diet, because we have you know, none of our dogs ever had any cancerous growths, thank God. But Lenny does have this like wart on his chest, and he's been there since he was 2, and it just kind of grew. We did aspirate it like multiple times. They never find any cancerous cells. And at this point, he's 13, like, you know, he's almost 13. Even if something happens to him, obviously I will give my all to make him better. But it's probably that the MVD, the heart condition, is probably going to get him more than anything, because he is coughing already. So even if that turns cancerous, I would rather put him on something like turkey tail rather than take him through chemo, because I while they take it better than humans, it would still be, you know, it would still be difficult to kind of torture him, and I just don't want to do that for him. I want to let him live out as long as he's got, and he's on some really expensive supplements though. Oh my god, like Lenny cost me a lot of cash per month. I think just his supplements, so let's see, we've got the ubiquinol, which is the bioabsorbable ubiquinol, super expensive. That's $150 a month. That's in pounds as well. So then we've got Young at Heart, which is like this tincture that I give him. That's not that expensive, but it's still 35 pounds a bottle. Then we have D-ribose. It's a simple sugar that helps ATP creation and takes away the strain from the heart. Even I take it. That's not super expensive. I think I buy that in bulk powders, and then that lasts for ages. So that's not much of a cost. Vetmedin. He's on a very expensive medication called Vetmedin. If you buy it directly from the vet, that's like arm and a leg. So I would say that's an additional £50 a month. That's without any insurance. Now, insurance for Lenny, unfortunately, because it's a pre-existing condition for him, he's not even eligible for insurance. But I do have senior insurance for him for like injuries, like if he gets a foxtail stuck somewhere, or if he breaks his leg or his hips or something, I need to have that. But his heart condition is not covered, unfortunately. So if he does end up in, you know, having to stay in a hospital for any kind of heart-related conditions, that's all going to come out of my pocket. And that can be like £4,000 for a week. It's extortionately expensive. But yeah, so old dogs. I mean, they're beautiful. I love senior dogs. They're so cool. And it's sad that they spend such short amount of time with us. That's why we have to make it as best as possible. I absolutely adore animals. Like I would give everything to make them live longer. But at the same time, I don't want to torture them. Like if they're really sick, you have to make that awful decision, don't you? As a pet owner, pet parent, parent, is that a name? Doggy mama. There's the baby mama and there's a doggy mama. That's me. Right, so far, I mean, we have an average session range low here for London, literally right around here, so let's hope they don't whip it back up. Otherwise, all we're going to end up with is a scratch trade. Do you know what? Let's, I wouldn't do this normally if I wasn't on a stream, but I'm going to cut 2 off. There we go, I took 2 off. And then, because obviously I'm not going to hold, this is a combine, right? So I'm not going to hold this all day because I've actually got a busy morning. I've got to take another one of my dogs for a quick checkup at the vets after I'm done with the stream. But let me see if I've got another dog. I've got a Bernard, And I've got a rimmer. Hold on. Rimmer is because black dogs don't really come off that well on screen, but I might be able to get a rimmer. Rimmer, wanna come say hi to everybody? Come, get your Becky. Come get a Becky. Come over. Come up. Up. Come on up. Come on up. What's happening? Can't get through the chair. All right, up. Come on up. There he is. Good boy. There we go. This is Rimmer. He's one of my big boys. And he's named after the Red Dwarf character. If you've ever seen Red Dwarf, you will know Rimmer and Crichton. And this is Rimmer. There's Lister as well, but then one of our very good friends named his cat Lister, so we didn't want to encroach on those names. So Crichton and Rimmer, and this is Rimmer Bear. This is Rimmer. He used to be known as the Brad Pitt of the dog world, because when he was little, he had such cute face. I mean, he's still pretty cute now. Yeah. And he likes to give you feedback when you're touching him, when you're massaging parts that are a bit sore. He kind of gives you like, especially back legs. Let's see. You like that? I like massage. Like, yeah, there we go. So there we go. Yeah, we've got 1 more minute. Let's see if we can get another drop here, and then that'll be it for the day. No, actually, it won't be. I've got lunchbox trading today. We are actually doing Anne Marie's VIP draft today, so make sure you come and watch that. Because we're not done. We're not done. We still have the VIP teams to draft. I think there's a few left. I think there's about 5 left, and Anne Marie is one of them. So yeah. Surf Sun and Sun says, I'm trying to familiarize myself with all the buttons. I just found the trailing stop. With futures, you go long on a red candle and short on a green. What? Oh, right, you come from options. Right, yeah, futures trading, not quite the same, man. Not quite the same. Right, are they going to whip it down already? Come on. Come on. Come on. You want to go? Let's go. Go. Good boy. Yes. Thank you for being my co-hosts. You will get paid in Bickies. Don't worry. Payment in Bickies is arriving. All right. Yeah. Yeah, it really does depend on the chart. Sure, Life Hacks is right. But yeah, outright futures trading, very different. To me, actually, options are easier. I don't know. Not if you're going to do like super complex ones, but you know, that requires pretty deep knowledge. But if you're just going to do like replace some of this stuff with some options trading, it might be, you know. I feel that futures trading outright is so sensitive to like any inconsistencies you have. Like you change the number of trades per day that you're doing, and you change, all right, let's close this out. It's, whatever. Yeah, you change like number of trades per day you do. It skews the results. You change the stop loss size. That skews the results. You change your position size a little bit. Everything just is so sensitive. But yeah. All right. I took some profits. Again, not the biggest trade here. It might unwind more, but we ran out of time here. So I'm going to go and do some other things today. That's it for the day. Whoever's in my VIP team, welcome. Looking forward to working with everyone, getting to know everybody. Super exciting August coming up. In the meantime, stay vigilant. We do have NFP tomorrow. We have PC today, but NFP is going to be the bigger one. And to be honest, yesterday's FOMC was one of the quieter FOMCs I've seen in a while. Keep your head on a swivel for the headline risk. As always, keep your financial juice open. Don't get caught up in the tape bombs and stuff. And if you do, just don't freak out and just go, oh, well, let's just carry on. Be more dog, right? That's all from me. The dogs are saying the same. This was the Euro Trade. I'm Marcus Stalker D. I will see you a bit later for Lunchbox Trading. And after that, I wish you a very good weekend, and I'll see you next week. Take care.